All right.
Probably. All right. So thank you guys for showing up today. I'm thankful that you did. How did I get, in this activity? I called Julie probably 6 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, in tears, practically in tears, because I had been asked to do something that I wasn't comfortable with, and I didn't think the Lord was in it. And I'm like, Julie, what can I do? And the more I talked, the more that she helped me try to follow through, thinking about what the Lord has intended for me to do. And I said, I'm not a really good person at reaching out so much, I'm a presenter, so when you look at this material, I'm not a designer. I don't design material. I don't develop material. I deliver material. And so that's what I'm more comfortable with. And so I was going through the whole thing, and I told her, I said, for almost 38 years at Allstate, I was a trainer. And she said, you can train? I'm like, that's all I knew to do for the most of my career there. And she said, and she started tearing up. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is my prime time, not yours. She was really tearing up, and she said, we're not even here to talk about what happened and what's going on. She said, I had been praying so hard and so long to try to find somebody that can train and that can help me, deliver the content of presentation skills for the blind ladies. I said, I can do that. I said, now let's back to what I was And she said, you're such an answer to prayer. But she helped me through the opportunity that I was having, because I felt like I was failing, and it was hurting my heart. I didn't want to be seen as someone that was failing, what a job that somebody had given, because that wasn't who I was. So I know there's probably anybody in this room that could stand up and do what I'm getting ready to do. I know it. Lisa has been a corporate trainer, probably as long as I have. Well, she was as old as I am, but for a long time. So she could do it. Anybody that's ever taken any kind of presentation skills in college, or Toastmasters, you can do this stuff. It's a little bit nervous, it makes you uncomfortable. But when you're with people that are pulling for you and people that want to see you succeed, it's just like Michelle and the communication you guys are talking about when you're doing your writing. She wants to see you succeed, so she's there to try to help every step of the way. That's kind of the way the presentation skills are. So you have your material with you. I noticed in the book that there were some note pages, but I went ahead and included a couple of note pages after each lesson, so it's kind of in the flow if you wanted to take notes as we were talking. But I wanted to ask you, what is your expectations for this class? What do you hope to come up with? What are you looking for? Yeah.
Because sometimes, well, you didn't say it. You didn't say it. Don't answer that. Sweet.
I think the word that comes to my mind is community.
Okay.
Just kind of a network of like-minded women that we can bounce ideas off of and help each other.
Okay. Out of this training class for presentation skills, what is something that you hope to gain when you walk away?
To learn not to say 92 times. To be able to speak with confidence.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you think that happens?
Practice.
Yes. It happens with practice. It happens with standing up, going through, not the mirror, like you were correct, don't talk to the mirror, but talking to these ladies who's offered their time, or to me, whoever, your family, and say, count the number of times I say or and then let me know how many times I said that. My husband was a Sunday school teacher once, and I may have told you this already, but I was in his class, and I noticed one Sunday that it seemed like every little word he said, and it caught my ear, and I thought, I can hear that. I know all these other people are hearing that. So I just kind of nonchalantly started doing a little tiki mark where my Bible note usually went. How many times I heard him say, Sunday school lessons are what, about 45 minutes?
Yes.
No joke, the man said, 76 times. So what other kind of message could he be presenting that they heard besides Right? So when I got home, I kind of, said, let me help you out, baby. That'll work too good with me, right? And he got really uncomfortable and didn't want to train anymore. So when somebody tells you that you said 50 times in a 30-minute segue, then you just want to stop, take a step back, breathe, pace your conversations a little bit, and think about your next word. Sometimes you lose words. Sometimes you're not comfortable with your content just yet. This was an international speaker, and she trained me on how to be called it M-I-N training. I know you probably remember that. She trained me and a lot of other ladies in our education team on how to present, how to facilitate. And she said sometimes for her, throwing in humor, like if she was at loss for words, she'd say, I took a couple of dumb pills this morning, they're really working. And people will laugh. People will laugh at that. And it gives you a few minutes to get the pressure off and think about what you're trying to get out at the next conversation. So use humor. Try to use humor when you can. So if I don't give you what you're looking for, or if something that you think may could help you, just holler at me, take a note of it, and we'll look at it and talk about it maybe individually. Before we dive into this real fast, I know that you are going to be doing some of your testimonies, and some of you have already done that. This was something, it's like a little cheat sheet that was in my high school Sunday school world quarterly last session. And I thought, you know what, that's a cool looking little tip sheet on how to give a testimony. And I thought maybe I can just throw that in the presentation thing, and maybe you could look at it. It tells you that you should look at everybody in the eye at least once. Your testimony should be less than 2 minutes. So it's a good little tip sheet for things to remember. I'm not going to go through that, but you can read it on your own. Let's pray before we get going. I'm not kidding you. Whenever I was at work, I knew my content like the back of my hand. But every time before I went into a classroom, I would either go in our supply closet and shut the door, and it was dark in there, or I'd go in the bathroom and shut the door and just stand in the stall and pray, because no matter how well you know your content, there's always an edge, a little bit of an edge, and you don't want to lose that, but you want the Lord to help you, because the message you're going to be giving is from your heart, and it's going to be important. You want to make sure that the nerves are calm enough and everything is the way it should be before you start. So let's pray with us. Father, I want to thank you for this day, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to share the skills and talents that you gave me with the girls in my church and for your work. Lord, I was successful in the corporate world, and Lord, I want to be as successful and give these girls something that they can take and use as they walk away. I pray, Lord, that you would take my mouth and take the words and just help them to be formed in a way that can be relatable and useful for your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the first. We're going to take a look at your presentation. Here are some things we're going to be looking at. First of all, we're going to look at some presentation fundamentals. What are the fundamentals of just being able to present? Things you probably heard, like the back of your hand. I invite you to join and speak. If you know something that could add value, please do so. I invite you to do that. We're also going to talk about how important it is to know your audience. It might be a little bit different in our setting, but it can be done. The next thing we want to take a look at is managing your audience. Might not be a need, but you never know. And the last thing we want to look at is some best practices for presentations. I hit Lisa up, I said, tell me what some of your best practices were. And she sent me over a text message, and I'll make sure to add those in. So if anybody else has any, when we get to that point, let me know, and we'll go through them. All right, so the objective for the lesson number 1, presentation fundamentals, is, somebody read the objective for me. That's close up, they can see that.
It says, at the end of this lesson, you will be able to apply these presentation fundamentals.
And what are they?
Importance of using clear language, why tone of voice matters, how personal appearance influences your audience, ways to engage the audience with effective interaction techniques, and tips for managing your time.
Okay, so how did I just engage the audience?
Yes, for our teachers.
That's one thing that you want to remember that'll help you. You don't have to remember to read that stuff. Ask your audience to remember it, or to read it, and we'll do that for you. We'll break these down on the next section, each one of them, and talk about them, and I'll get your input for them. So let's take a look at this one. Group conversation of what does using clear language mean to you? What does that mean?
We're up on their level, and we're trying to talk about the authority.
because if you've already got a group that is, maybe they've done some presentations herself, like Lisa, she's done tons of presentations. You know, I'm not gonna come in and pretend like I'm the man that knows everything, because I don't. You want to make sure you're including them. And also, if you've got people that really are, I don't want to say unlearned, but they're not as comfortable, you don't want to speak so high that they don't know what you're talking about, so you've got to speak in their language, and that's huge. What else?
To be able to understand it clearly, there's actual speech, to
Yes.
listen to the words.
Yes. You want to come across as confident. You want to come across as someone that knows what you're speaking about. This is probably going to be easier for you because you know your heart. You know the message you're going to deliver to someone. So it won't be as hard as me up here trying to remember all these notes on 50 pages that I got, right? So it'll be natural.
Hey, something else, Glenda, that I really have to be aware of when I am in front of a group is I don't always enunciate very clearly. And you know, I have my southern drawl and I've got a good one. And especially if I'm up north, I really have to be aware of it because I'll say something and you can see confusion on people's faces if they don't understand and they're like, I don't know what you said. So
That's really true because, just a quick example, whenever I was doing some training, I remember one day at work, it was really cold. And one of the guys came into class and I said, it's really cold outside, but I need for you to take your toboggan off. Because we weren't allowed to wear hats in the building. And somebody looked at me and they said, a toboggan? That's something you slide on. This is here, you call these things on your head a toboggan. So you're right, you have to be aware.
I'm like, what is a toboggan? I'm just putting on your doctor because everybody's going there. Seriously.
So your language.
Universal, probably use universal words like a hat, please with your hat.
Right.
I think universal words, and also speaking loudly, I'm not saying boisterously loud, but I don't like it when I can't hear it. I can't hear it. And then that ruins my mood because I cannot hear you. So I think that speaking.
And I think that comes with that confidence. If you're speaking with confidence, you tend to be louder
That's true.
than if you are unsure or you don't know your content, then you get,
That falls right in line, thank you. That falls right in line with the next one. Why is the tone and pace of your voice important? The tone and the pace. Anybody ever been told you speak too fast? Me.
Jeremy says I'm aggressive.
Aggressive? You know, when you say that, so let me give you an example of a lady that was a trainer with me. Tone could be voice inflection, how loud you speak. Her voice was so strong, it sounded like she had a microphone in her vocal cords. And I was jealous of that because in those classrooms they were huge and my voice didn't carry very loud. But when we would do the surveys at the end of the sessions, she'd always get comments like, the instructor was talking down to us. So a strength overused becomes a weakness.
Yes.
And you have to know what your own strengths are, and when you overuse them, they become a weakness.
Yeah.
So you have to pull that back. She wasn't trying to talk down to them, she just had a natural voice that everybody would love to have, but she had to work with that. Because the people felt like they were, speaking down to us.
Wow. Well, working at the call center for about 3 months, tone was at the top of how we answered the phone. They said the impression was actually gained in the first 6 seconds. And they're saying that if the tone was wrong, we were going to get dinged for it, so.
And you're exactly right, it's the same thing with speaking to an audience, because if you're in a group setting and your tone is monotone, which some people have it's just a natural monotone voice, they'll walk away saying, I don't really remember a whole lot she said. She sure was boring because it was just, We all can use our pitch in our voice. You ever get on a business call and your voice changes, right? So you can do it, right? You can do it, but it's fake if you don't watch it. So when you're in a presentation type thing, try to use your voice inflection without being fake if possible. It's not easy, but you can do it with practice. Let's see, that's the next one. Why would personal appearance matter?
you want people to focus on what you're saying, not what you're wearing.
Yes.
That's good.
One of my peers, she dressed to the hilt every day. I didn't have the money to dress to the hilt, for one thing. But she dressed to the hilt. I mean, high heel shoes, I mean, just beautiful. And she was a beautiful girl. And I was kind of envious because she always looked beautiful every day. I didn't have all that. But I had one of my participants come to me one day and she said, she dresses way too out there. I can't even focus on what I'm trying to listen to for looking at her. She was beautiful, beautiful girl. But sometimes it can be a distraction. So I would always suggest try to dress maybe a step up from where your group might be, from where you think your group might be, but don't be flashy. And I'm sure we're not gonna have a problem with that. But on the other hand, don't be up in front of the class and look like you just, slept on what you had on.
I think in this specific realm of teaching / speaking, you have to dress relatable.
You do?
You have to dress relatable because in this setting, when you're presenting, and this sounds so, I don't feel like it sounds bad, but when you're presenting the gospel to someone, if they find you high and mighty, and not relatable, they're not going to respond in a way that you want them to. But if you are relatable and we're all on level ground here, it makes a huge difference.
It
really
does. It does. But if you're wearing a sweater that needs ironing,
right?
Because you'll be like,
I wouldn't know
who
what
is
to
this
tell moms
person?
that be
Where
in
did they come from?
sweatpants and a
Yeah.
t-shirt.
no,
The mom outfit. But just if you're say you're going, every time that I've done Awaken, or I wear jeans. I do wear my jeans, but I wear a nice shirt, or I wear my boots, and I dress it up to look nice, so it's a little bit above where I'd probably show up in my leggings if I was just participating, but I'm still on a level that's relatable, and I don't look out of reach, or she's too fancy for me, she doesn't
You want to be
understand.
comfortable.
Right.
I found out a long time ago, many years ago, that if you dress nice, you don't have to overdress.
Right.
But if you dress nice, anywhere you go, I don't care what store, I don't care where you go, people are going to be nicer to you, and they're going to respect you. But if you dress, if you don't, I learned that a long time ago. That when you go out, you need to dress nice.
They'll look at you different.
They do.
And this does something for your confidence. If I look, this sounds so vain, I'm so sorry, y'all don't judge me for this. But if my hair is done and I've got makeup on and I love what I'm wearing, I speak a whole lot more confidently
That's right.
than if it took me an hour to figure out what to put on my body and I feel gross in what I have on. That, it makes a huge difference in delivery. It does, it makes a difference in delivery.
It could be as simple as just throwing on the necklace.
Yeah.
Don't you like my $5 necklace?
Yes. So say if you need some, we have somebody who can supply it for you.
Right, so it doesn't have to be overkill, but it does make you feel more confident, so I encourage you to do that. While ago, it was so funny because I asked you a question and Trish said, oh, you want an answer, don't you? Sometimes, you'll ask a question and you might not get an immediate answer. And I learned that people are trying to formulate how they want to respond. They're sitting there with their peers or with people they don't know. They might not just be able to come out with an answer till they're thinking about it. And as presenters, that quiet time is uncomfortable for us because we think you need to be saying something, you need to be filling that silent time. So one little tip that I've learned was after you ask the question, do one round of Mary Had a Little Lamb in your head. That occupies that silent time for you, but it gives them time to think about what they want to say. If you keep that silent time long enough, somebody will say something. And then once somebody says something, now everybody else has got something to say. So it's just a little tip to fill your silent time. So you're not, I gotta say something because nobody else is going to.
Nobody wants to be first.
Nobody wants to be first.
That's true.
Let's see. That silent time's been hard for me, really hard.
Just personal experience. Sometimes when a presenter will ask a question, and you give an answer that you think is correct. As a presenter, you need not to say, well, no, that's not right. Because personal experience, again, it makes you feel about this big.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You can always find something about what they said to pull from it and add something else to it that gives the right answer.
Right.
You know, you never want to, you're exactly right, you never want to make that person feel like they just,
Oh, what?
yeah, you can't do that, that's not right. Another thing is your body language. You know, I could be up here twirling my necklace, and I seen the trainer do it one time, twirling her necklace. I don't know if she was nervous or bored, and that thing popped and went to a million different places. And then just trying to, you know, your body language speaks volume. You know, you don't want to stand like this, you don't want to stand like this, you don't want to hold your hands like that. You know, try to be as comfortable. If you're really nervous, you know, I started out kind of leaning on this podium, looked relaxed, but it was holding up my arm until I got a little bit of ground on my feet. So find something to do with your body language, because when you see somebody for the first time, their body language speaks much louder than their words. And so you want to make sure that you're confident in the way that you're moving around. Yes?
Question. In the book, Called to Speak, there was there's something about if you're a lecture leaner, you know, of course, be mindful of what you're wearing, but it said a leaner, it shows meekness and weakness. It said both of them. But I need an explanation.
So that's the only thing you're doing. You know, it could mean it, or if you're just standing behind it the whole time. You know, you don't want to just stand behind it. Really, I should be walking around. You should be walking around, you know, so that everybody's feeling engaged and everybody's feeling comfortable. If I just lean on that thing the whole time, or if you do when you're presenting, you don't feel like you're getting in the middle of a conversation with everybody, and now you're a group instead of this just being y'all and me.
Okay.
You know?
Okay, that's
Does that help?
yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And I think you learn too, like what you can and cannot, like, I think you learn the more you speak what to avoid. Like, I have to avoid all things that have pockets.
Yeah.
Because I will stick my hands in my pockets when I don't know what to do with my hands. Because I'm a hand, this is how I speak. I speak with my hands, and so I find myself, I'll stick my hands in my pocket so it doesn't look like I'm going to punch someone.
Or if you're a distraction and they're not listening to what you're saying, they're just watching what you're going to do with your hands.
So I can't wear anything that has pockets.
And I want to just add to that, because this is something that I've done. I've had to speak at different occasions where we had to wear like business attire, heels, and things like that.
Yep.
But what is coming to mind right now is at my sister's funeral, and I had to speak at her funeral. So I had a dress on and heels. And I'm one of these, I'm not a public speaker. Like, I can talk this, but I'm really kind of focused, narrowly focused on people directly across me. But I stood up there, and all I could hear, because I have physical responses to my nervousness, was all of my legs. And I stood up there, shook like this, and you could hear me time, because I was standing on a hard floor, and you could hear, I'm listening to myself speaking, I could hear this, and I couldn't stop it. You didn't hear it? My brother gave me the hardest time about that, and all day long, every time he turned around, he was going, you know, and it was just like, I was horrified, and I'm thinking, who else heard all of it? You didn't hear it?
Because I never heard it.
Well, that makes me feel better because I'm recalling it and I could hear it, and there was a couple of times it was so distracting to me that I wasn't sure what was going to come out of my mouth next. And it was terrible. And the more I heard it, the more nervous I got.
So the
And so
thing
it just exacerbated. So if you are a foot shaker or things, don't wear heels. Wear solid. I'm serious. I'm so serious.
It's important that you're comfortable. You know,
Yes.
you may look cute, but if you're not comfortable and your feet hurt or they shake.
Yeah, it was the shaking. And I had, and to make it even worse, I had this podium, because I had to have it in written form. I couldn't, well, I think it was the difficulty in this situation too. I had to have it written, but I had it on a podium, so therefore I had something to support myself that gave my heel even more room to that. Yeah, really. If I had something to have leaned back against where I could have like crossed an ankle or did something, it might have been better, but be careful.
Thank you. Chris, Trish hit on something a little bit ago too, with when you were in the call center, your tone, you know the old saying, people will they will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them
That's
feel,
exactly right.
you know? And so if you can sound inviting, again, I don't think it'll be a problem with our passion, what we're gonna be talking about. I think the biggest problem for that was, or is gonna be, maybe managing your time, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that, but, and how it may interfere with your passion and conversations. We'll talk about that in a second. Ways to engage your audience. What are some ways that you've seen me already engage the audience?
Participation,
Ask questions.
Ask questions. The art of questioning is one of the biggest things that can really help you when you're presenting. And it's a true art. If you go out there and Google look it up, it is an art of being able to ask questions, ask the right kind of questions that don't pose, because I can chase rabbits while I'm up here talking. I can get on a roll and talk about all kinds of stuff, right? And if you allow your class or your audience to do the same thing, you have to find a way how to jump in there, because they'll eat up all your time. And people, you know, with our subject that you guys are really talk about, they're going to be passionate about that too, because they're there to hear more about it. They've got their own stories, and you want them to be able to tell their stories, but you can't let them eat up your time, which is the next thing.
What would you say for, like, say, you're speaking to a much larger group?
Yep.
How would you approach that, asking questions? If you say you're speaking to a group of like 100 or 200, like how would you manage that?
How many of you have ever blah, 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 blah?
Right, okay.
And then you say, Michelle, tell us about your experience. You see the hands and you call out randomly.
Okay,
Because everybody doesn't have a chance. Because everybody wants to talk.
right,
Yep,
okay.
but you can't.
That's a good thing.
That's,
Keep control.
yeah, keep control of it, yeah. You wanna step over.
Something about time management that I wrote on there is that you're there to deliver a message, something that the Lord's laid heavy on your heart. You want to make sure you've got plenty of time to get that out and to deliver that, because He's going to use that. But you got to find ways to manage your time. And I think we just already spoke about why it's important. If you need someone to help you with that, I have many, many times had one of my peers that were with me, or if you know maybe the sponsor, you know, that's got you in the door at that place, ask them, say, if you have an hour worth of time, at 30 minutes, will you kind of give me a nonchalant, you got 30 minutes left, and then at 10 minutes, do the same thing so I can start wrapping up. Just have someone help you with that, because it's hard to keep it up in your mind and then to be able to, anything different, Lisa, that you use around time?
I just like to have a clock on the wall, but that's not always gonna happen either.
Yeah. And then sometimes they don't have it on daylight saving time, people forget to change it, and it's 10 minutes off, and
Or the battery died, and it's like, wait a
it's
minute.
hard, it's hard.
I'm talking for an hour and a half.
You had a thought, Justin, I'm sorry, you had a thought?
I was just gonna say, you know, Michelle and I, when you text someone, there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? Everything's monotone, you know, everything's the same. So thank the Lord for audio messages, because we audio message a lot. So the other night, I said, can I read my beginning statement to you? So I didn't, it wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna read this to you, blah, blah. I just started in right with like, good morning, da 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 da. But I was able to see how long that lasted.
Yep.
And that's a really good thing to use too, beforehand with time management. Get on, the fan went off. Hold on. But like, get a recorder app, a voice recorder app or something on your phone. And if you're not gonna, you know, stand and talk in front of a mirror, get your phone out, hit record, and just start talking, because it will tell you how long that is. Because it's like I told her, yes, I have it written down here.
Yep.
I'm ready, I'm prepared. But you know, if you've spoken anywhere before, when you get up there, the words aren't gonna be the same here, because you do start to get either comfortable or uncomfortable, and then more words are gonna come out, or less words are gonna come out. So then, it starts to either dwindle or last a whole lot longer.
Yeah.
So,
I've even set an alarm on my phone, like where it'll buzz, like it's on vibrate, so they can't hear it, but it will at least buzz at like a 10-minute mark. But I think the more, I don't know if you guys are like this, but the more you speak, you sort of can gauge how long you have been talking. Like, I've been talking for a really long time. It's time to sort of, you know, wrap it up. So I think, but that's helped me to just set a little buzz on my phone if I don't have someone with me who can say, stop talking.
Yep.
So that's just something that I've done.
Practice, you're exactly right, practice it and time yourself. Audience engagement is one of the biggest things that I can offer. You've got to get those folks engaged in your conversation and offering their thoughts too, because if you don't, you're just there and you're just talking and they just left and it was either good or it was bad and you didn't really get the message across. So engagement is one of the biggest things.
I'll tell you something else, Glenda, for engagement and time management. So if you have put your presentation together and you have some activities in there, depending on the amount of engagement, it may expand the time. So I always like to just know, like a sticky note or something, that it'll say, can leave this out if needed. So just knowing that there are some places that you can leave out certain things if you realize you're in trouble with your time.
Like on my note page, here I got all these messy, this makes sense to me, but you see all these little things marked out. I figured I wasn't gonna get to it, so I said, forget it, we won't have time to do it. That's good, thank you.
How long is our presentation supposed to be? 15 minutes? Something like that?
I
Is that
think-
what I remember?
what we
We talked about 10 to 15.
Okay.
You can have a minimum, maximum. Some people were under the impression it may only be 3 to 5, but we figured that probably wasn't enough to present. And I'm going to talk more about that at the end. Because I've spoken with Rebecca, some other people have asked some questions, so I'm going to cover that at the end before we leave, and we always talk about homework. And that's exactly what I'm sitting right here, is making my notes, so that I hopefully don't leave out anything. But please jot down some questions that you might ask, because Julie's here, Michelle's here. I don't for sure have the answers, so they can help me if I misspeak or give the wrong information.
So whenever they're going out and about, it'll only be 10 or 15 minutes?
out and about.
Oh, that'll
No.
be much longer.
This
Oh,
is
that's
just
what I was
for
talking about.
March's presentation.
Okay, because I was thinking when you're out getting your,
Like if you're gonna
It'll at
actually
least,
speak.
it'll be about,
Like their whole
Okay.
talk will end up being about an hour, or should be about an hour, and then we're just hitting that first point.
Okay.
So we just want them to sort of,
because I'm like, you can't engage your audience in 10 minutes, so forget everything I just said. You made me nervous. Yeah.
So when we're talking about, like, I don't want to take away from this, we are just talking about our March presentation, right? When we're, and only that, okay.
Okay, I have another thing that I think would probably eat away your time, and maybe it won't, when you're passionate about something and you start talking about it, you have a tendency to cry, right? So when you're presenting something, I want you to, share that passion, but as much as possible, try to stay in control, because if you don't, you still won't be able to get your message out. Like when my husband used to teach Sunday school, when he wasn't saying, he was crying, so they really didn't get a whole lot of anything. But it was his heart, it was his heart.
and it's
And I knew
hard.
that.
It's hard.
It's very hard.
It is hard.
It's really hard. I have been accused of being too detached, because I know I've got a mission that I'm trying to hit. Now, if it's something like in my Sunday school class, sometimes we break down and cry for a little bit, but it's just an overwhelming thought, that comes to mind when you're speaking or when you're talking. So, but this is going to be something that's near and dear to your heart, and I would expect it would be very difficult not to want to cry, and you may not even be able to control it. But try to, as much as possible, stay in control, because you're there to try to help those things.
And I think as you're working through it, I think working through it is the hard emotional work.
Yeah.
And so, like some things, if I'm working through writing something or getting ready to speak, and usually what gets me upset is the overwhelm of how good God has been.
Yes,
And
yes,
so
it will.
usually if you can get the crying out while you're working through it, it helps you be a little bit more in control when you're delivering.
And when the Holy Spirit moves in the moment, they will know that.
Oh, yeah.
They will know that He just kind of took over your heart, and you can't hold it in when that happens. You know, so as much as possible, if you can stay in control, it'll help you. It'll help you a lot. I think we talked about practicing already. That'll help with your time management, that kind of thing. Any questions or comments before we move on to lesson 2? And you let me know when it's time for a break, and I can just kind of.
Oh, that's up to you.
Yeah, I can
I
write it
got
off
4
whenever.
lessons, so if you want to get 2, and we'll do 2.
Okay.
That's up to you.
Any thoughts or comments before we move on? All right, so let's talk about knowing your audience just a little bit. Rebecca, can you see this quote? Can you see that quote? Or
Yes.
so many quotes because it's kind of small.
Yes. The success of your presentation will be judged not by the knowledge you send, but by what the listener receives.
What you think about that? You know, you can think you're saying the most eloquent words and you're giving the best whatever, but if they don't hear your message, it was for naught.
Yeah.
So it's just like whenever we say that Jesus is the one that we're doing things for. It's for Him. It's not for me. It's all about Him. It's all about me. When you're presenting, it's really all about them. It's not so much about you. Because if they don't get what you came in there to deliver, you didn't succeed. So at the end of this lesson, he'll understand the benefits of knowing your audience. What are some of the bigger words that jump out there to you in that word cloud?
Listen, engage, perspective, those are the largest.
They are.
Are the font, but I think all of them are very important, because I think the first one in the line is respect. I think that
Yes.
probably should be already in the center, because
That's right.
Yeah.
You've got to respect the people that are there with you because they've come to hear what you've got to say. Perspective, perception. Like if I hold up my hand, I'm holding up my right hand, what do you see? See my hand, right? We see the same thing? No? Who said no?
I did, because you're looking in front of your hand, holding up.
It's my right hand, but you're looking at the palm, and I'm looking at this side. So it's perspective. And everybody that comes into your room will have their own perspective about what they think you're going to say, what you're doing there, what they anticipate to hear and engage in. Where does our perspectives come from?
Your life.
Your life, experiences, school, your religion, your family size, So everybody's got a perspective, and we can't meet all of them, but you just at least want to be aware of what they're hearing, what they're seeing, and you try to stay aware of that stuff. Know your audience. It was always easier for me because I went all over the country. We had different classes all over everywhere, and I was always nervous because I never knew who I was going to see, what they were expecting, what I was supposed to do. And I remember one division manager, he came into a classroom, he's like, all right, Glenda Williams, tell me something I don't know because I'm going to get up and walk out of this class if you don't. I got more important things to do. Tell me something I need to know. So I had to real quick get on the stick and try to share something that I thought those division managers wanted to hear, and it would help them. Knowing your audience, if you can maybe find out, and I don't know if these are going to be sponsors, if these are going to be, what's going to be the connections to some of these places that they'll be speaking at? Will it be like somebody like you or you at, that they'll be able to connect with to come and speak at? Like whenever you went to speak, who did you connect with to get you there?
In which situation are you talking about?
Anything, any of them.
Well, maybe like at, trying to think of the different situations, I can't recall one in particular.
Like at a church or a
This is the only
nonprofit
church
organization.
that I've spoken at.
What is it?
This is the only church that I've
Okay,
spoken
okay.
at.
Networking? Like,
Networking.
For me,
or
at least in for two different instances, when I spoke at Jackson Park a few years ago, I had a connection with the pastor's wife.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So there'll always be somebody that'll get you in the door.
Yeah.
That you can sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation, and you can say, tell me a little bit about the age of these people that's gonna be here. You know, are they gonna be young, is it gonna be young people? Is it gonna be elderly people?
I can give you a good example. So
Yes.
just this week,
Yes.
I have talked to Diane and given her my like speaking cards and all the things. And I got an email from the North Carolina Baptist Secretaries Association
Yep.
inquiring about being their keynote speaker, which makes me want to vomit, but that's a whole other story. So I had to, I'm sorry, it does, three 1 hour set, we can talk about it later. Okay, anyway, so I reached back out to her and said, I need you to tell me what this is, how
Yes,
long,
yes,
like,
yes.
what do you recommend? And so I asked her because she's involved in the situation and she knows that. So it really does help when you have someone who can give you
And
some
knowing
insight.
your audience, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You get to know these people. If there isn't anybody, you know, if you don't have anybody, maybe you just got invited by an email, or maybe Julie says there's the Crisis Pregnancy Center, want you to come and do, you know, share or whatever, you know. If there's nobody that you can get any information with, you know, starting up front, get there early, you know, go up and say, hey, my name is Glenda, how are you, what's your name? Invite yourself. It'll help you with your nerves.
Exactly.
Get going. Like if Lisa was to say something about, I'll say, hey, my name is Glenda Williams, how are you? I'm good. Are you married? Do you have children? You know, and she's like, yeah, I've got 3. And then in your conversation, you can say, and Lisa told me a while ago, and they're like, oh, she knows Lisa? You know, it makes connections real quick, and it lets them know that you're real, that you're a real person. You know, so the more you can get involved with your audience before you get going, the more comfortable, and you'll just be more relaxed.
And when we sit on the balcony for church, so I get nervous, like tomorrow, probably I'll announce for Awaken. My palms are already sweating, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I always find myself like, I'm getting nervous to get up in front of the church. You know, that's intimidating. But then I have to remind myself, when you're on the balcony, you've got the whole choir that's in front of you. So it's like you find ways to realize you're not in front of people that you don't know, or you're not in front of, you know, to make that connection of, well, every Sunday you got 50 people staring at you, sitting in a congregation anyway, you know?
Yes.
Very true.
Know your audience. It's important. It is important. Any questions or thoughts before we?
I think Facebook too is a really good place to, trying to think how I want to say this. Like, for example, the place that Michelle told me to submit my writing to, I would have never known about that had she not told me.
Yep.
But now I have liked that page. I join in when she has conversations, and like when that lady goes live and she does different things. So when, like, if you know that this is your topic of study, find those groups.
Yes.
And become a part of them and start to engage and interact with the people in them, because then when you do write for them or send something in, or you do a live and you speak on Facebook, they're going to recognize you. They're going to recognize your name. They're going to recognize, you know, maybe from some of the things that you said, how you feel about certain topics and things like that. Like if I submit something to this lady, because I have interacted with her now a few times, she's probably going to be like, oh yeah, I know your name.
That's right.
You know, oh, that's who you are.
Networking,
you know.
Networking is everything.
Yes, it is. And then when you're standing up live, you've got that connection.
Yeah.
It's huge, 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 huge.
And you can draw from those people. You know, don't plagiarize, but draw from those people. You can, that's how I am. In a lot of the Facebook groups that I'm a part of, when I watch their lives, I take a lot of notes. I'm writing things down. I'm going back and listening. Sermons that people have written. I sat and listened, I don't know how many I listened to last night on marriage and Christian wives and submission and just all sorts of different topics. And you can draw a lot of inspiration from things like that too.
And reading really good books.
And reading. I'm not a reader, y'all, I'm not, but I'm learning to embrace my love of books.
Wow.
One other thing along with knowing the audience is be familiar with the venue where you're going to be standing, where you're going to be, how close you're going to be. Get there a little bit early, make sure that everything works. Beverly, you'll talk about that next month, I'm sure. But it helps to calm those nerves. See, I was thinking we're going to be in the fellowship hall, and so I got with Sydney Wednesday night, and I'm like, can I use your laptop to change your Sunday school so it'll be on the overhead? He said, sure, come on, I'll give you my password. And he said, just do it like this. And I thought we were going to be in the fellowship hall. And then when I talked to Lee over the weekend, she's like, no, honey, we're in the conference room. I got to get in there and figure that place out because I was all comfortable there.
Yeah.
But knowing your venue, knowing the setup, if they'll let you come, before time, you don't want to go early, but just get there and kind of get comfortable with where it's going to be. It'll help a lot too. Huge important. I talked about humor. Storytelling. People can relate to story. Storytelling is a huge thing. So as you're studying your content, if something comes to mind that's not too personal, that you can share it because people love stories. They can relate to that. So.
They do.
I think. Any other questions or thoughts? We'll go ahead and go for a break. How long is the break for?
About 10 minutes.
10 minutes, so we'll come back here and let me get my education thing going on.
I can listen to 10:35,
Yeah.
not quite 10 minutes.
10:35.
Yeah. It was, well, that's not right.
Did you want me to do that? Thing on parenting with like that I did one time. Do you think it would be, do you think women that don't have children or have already raised their children, do you think they would get something? Do you think it would be a general topic for the community?
Because I am for
Or do you think it would just target one group?
I was just thinking about that. Grandchildren, I think that people that.
Okay, so they were just like finding basically.
Maybe not for that, maybe that could be just.
Okay.
Because I was just thinking about, we have women that have not been able to have children, and I don't know.
Well, that would. That would be something.
Okay, is that okay? Do you want to do June? You can do June.
And then we need, my thing is volunteer.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that'll be good. Okay. June.
Now we're full.
So I broke down.
I think it's a new
Four parts.
Yeah.
So I really could do, I think it's like, I could do it in like 2 sessions, I could do 2 parts per session.
Is it given? Because she has got something.
So I'm just gonna bring Haley.
I mean, you do it. I just, I told her, come bring it, I was like, because it's in Fort Cass. Oh, like she knows all about, like, somebody have to go, like, someone will have to go to the because someone taught me about jumping off the ledge. Over the pier into the ocean. No, I can't do it.
It's okay. I'll probably do it. Michelle can do it. She's there too.
She has.
I think so. Wait on it. Because see, on this thing, when you make sure I know whenever the dates are, so I'm going to get the last thing.
January, February, March,
So I gotta be ready to go. Right. By the end, that's what I'm doing.
So we just want to, there's some,
And then did she sit there and go through it with you, or did you, no, you touched it.
Yeah, next Saturday.
I think we used to.
Right.
speak, how can I get my PowerPoint? Can I use, is that the computer from over there?
Is that your?
I think that's Glenda's.
Is that your laptop, Linda?
So there is a laptop over there
Yes.
though.
So you should be able to put it on a thumb drive and just
Okay.
plug it in.
Okay.
I would not use any like crazy fonts though, because they won't like,
It's just normal.
yeah, so I would, that we should be
Can I show
fine.
you, do you have a minute? I want it just to see. I want you to watch it.
Just brush normal.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on, it's next Saturday.
We're seasonal. We try to, like Julia, when were we doing Christmas? Was it in
It was
like
in the fall or, it was like, no, it was like August.
It was
before you left.
Yeah, it was before we left.
She had red shirt, she had a few
Yeah, I know it was something, I couldn't get ready for Christmas in August.
I have gotten some really good audience practice the last couple weeks doing Spark devotions, second court during basketball over there. Because that about tears my nerves out of their sockets. So like but I find myself like I will turn, because I want to see everybody, I want to see your face, like I need to see your face. So I'm like, well, it's only like, almost like half circle, so there's nobody behind me. So like, but I'll turn. And I'm
sorry, I was just doing that just for the
There's one man, this little old man, he came up and I guess, we have a ton of people from the church that do the devotions. They're like 3 to 5 minutes, but some of them get really nervous and so then they forget to pray at the end. Well, this little man came up to the concession stand and it was Jeremy, bless his heart, but it was my fault because I put him on the spot and made him do mine and he forgot to pray at the end. And the man said, I gotta get out of here before the lightning strikes because they didn't pray. And so he was in the gym when I did my last one. I was like, just pray, just make sure you pray. Just make sure you pray. When you're done, just make sure you pray. Like, that was what was going through my head, like, the whole
Because you
time.
kept focusing on his face.
I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget to pray, I'm gonna forget to pray. But
We'll let you know whenever.
it's funny though, because I thought, oh, if I don't pray,
Thanks.
it's gonna be over.
Is it okay that I jump from white to black font?
Everybody wants to do it.
So turn it would make it. Yeah, it does. I'm not done yet.
I can only tell you how much I
Is that
love
back there okay?
I was trying to figure out what you put on it. And I was like,
Make these go out.
it just came to me.
I love it.
And I was like, no, I think you're sitting there studying, you and him. It's just you and him. Remember, it's all about him. And I was like, got you.
That one bigger?
It's a good reminder.
precious one.
Because I was kind of searching, thinking, you're being good with it on it. Because I've been wanting to do mother for a while now. But I finally got brave and got my machine out, and I was like, I'm just gonna jump into it. And I have a friend,
I just want to be sure.
I don't know if y'all have seen, we have a tablecloth for the ladies group now. The green, this green, and it's got the white, and then
I'll
it's
do it so that Wednesday
white
I
and
can.
black. I believe the tree is white, it's our new tree. And she, I went to high school with her, and she did it for us. Julie gave me permission, she's like, I don't care, just mail it, because she's like, you can do it, and I'm like, I'm not starting with a
With her, I
tablecloth.
can hold it.
And she's been my
I can
encourager.
just do it on the computer.
And she's like, you can do it, you can do it. And I was like, okay, I'll just jump in
I'll
and
run and I'll show you how to do it.
it's been fun.
You showed me, but it's
Not near as hard as I thought, but it's not near as,
Since October.
yes, it's fun.
And to your question, when I did the video, yes, that networked. Yes. I reached out and networked so I could get from
Yeah,
Instagram.
I couldn't think of what that was called.
Yeah.
just what you said.
Because if there are young people there, you might have to tell them a story or something about your sister or your child or something, but if it's mostly older people, then you'll be close to a bunch of grandma. Try to really get all that
I wanted to get it done. You know what I mean? And then I
Without
got
the story detail, you know.
But
we all got stories too.
That's where the relation comes in.
Yeah.
Because then they're like, oh, I should have, like, I did. Oh, she didn't figure it out like I did.
That's what that was very related to.
Because if you know, they're like, oh, I didn't get anything
Yeah, what you
Yeah, but I tell you,
I experienced that all the time.
It's a good story. It's not always a good story.
You don't know that. Really? And I don't have that quiet time at home to do it. It's just fantastic. I mean, you gotta go your last night. I did know my morning. Yeah.
And you're talking like
In my office, I double screen computer, so it was like as I was doing my PowerPoint, I had my mom take it, so I was.
They do.
And I had my outline, so it was like. And you gotta tell them something new within 10 minutes.
It should be
That's a lot of
realized after.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Like, you know, as I was doing that
Well, you know,
outline.
Mr. Bailey's always said, he
Because if I don't get
does not have a favorable,
I wanna have it on my
corporate America. He'll say, maybe he'll say the crooks. You know, and I'm not, shouldn't use a broad brush, but I know what he's saying, corporate America will say one thing and do another.
I used to have to like train new leaders, so we'll have to do interviews, like candidates that come in, interview a job, and all these leaders, they have to sign up, every time they have somebody get promoted to a new leaders, and then hire them off the street. I have to go in there and lay on the law and say, you can't do this, you can't do this, blah, blah, blah. I say, you can't ask somebody, you can't ask somebody, and I just lay it in there. And that's when God told me, it kind of reminds me of the fake business. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's Salesforce, and whoever I hire, look, I'm not gonna hire you because you can't be a salesperson if you're not good with it. I'm like, oh, get out of here, just go out of here, you ain't even not qualified, get out of here.
What's really sad about that is that they may not tell you that they're not gonna hire you because of your age.
But they're thinking,
But they'll find another reason.
Right.
They will say, well, they found somebody else. Or when you're good as I found. Oh, yeah, I know, I'm overqualified. Steve's trying to find a local job. Yeah, 64 years old. People will think, no, you have nothing else.
Well, that's good to know, because just as the same way Steve been doing just computer, I told my mom, they won't even send a message back, and they're going to put on their form, apply through this, and they won't even respond, thank you, we got your, nothing.
somebody's at the house.
Well, and one of them he did, and they still haven't responded, and he's like, listen, I was like, it's God, you're not meant, and a lot of it, I was writing this down last night, we were driving to Charlotte, and I'm telling you, that's a God thing, because he does not do well with traffic, that's why we don't see him in Texas, because he doesn't do well with traffic, and several of them have been to Charlotte, and we were driving in last night, going to take the kids, and it was still after, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, you knew, because he doesn't do well with traffic.
I know that.
Well, I grew up driving, so thankfully I don't get intimidated driving in, so I like it, but that traffic just drives me.
I get so great, but
Are you kidding me? All right, let's go ahead and come back and let's take a look at lesson 3 and talk a little bit about managing the audience. Has anybody ever had a difficult time managing an audience?
Yes.
Yes? Yes, tell me about it.
Well, I have a difficult time all the time because as we were just talking, you got people that don't want to be there.
Yep.
They don't think they need to be there, and hopefully in the setting that we're looking forward to teaching and sharing, we won't experience that as much, but in the corporate setting, it can be really bad sometimes.
Sure can. And to me, I think managing the audience is not necessarily somebody being nasty, but I can actually see this being an issue in our world. Everybody's got a story, and everybody wants to share. If you're passionate about something, they probably are just as passionate, or they might not be there, and they want to share their story. So knowing how to manage that audience, and try to pull everybody in. When you think about sidebar conversations, and that's one of the first things on there, normally if you see some sidebar conversations, kind of like what's here going on, you don't say that. You don't say that. Very good. One way to cut that off is just kind of walk off in the direction of where the sidebar conversations are at. And people will start looking at you, they listen to you talk, but they'll look at where you're going, and eventually these people will, and that was a setup, I asked you to do that.
I would never do that. I wouldn't either.
Everybody's looking that way, and they'll be like, oh, we gotta stop talking because everybody's looking at us. Or, I've seen it go on, I've walked over there, I stood beside them before, and they still wouldn't stop, and I'd say, you know, it seems like you guys got a lot of conversation that everybody else might be interested in hearing. Is there something you need to share with us? Or that you'd like to share with us? I've called them on it.
Yeah,
You have to, you have to.
I think in this specific realm of what we're talking about, something that comes with managing your audience is relationships. A lot of times you'll find you're in a smaller group setting, and you will, there's no maybe, you will have conversations when you're done. And you will, I've had many, Holy Mess in particular, because it was very personal and it was very, it was very intimate. For 6 weeks, you're with people for that short period of time. But managing what you can give and take, that comes with that too, and relationships, and people will share things with you because you have opened up to them, and so I think that will come with that managing your audience. It may not be all in one, but you may have several that want that one-on-one with you, and so I think that is
That's when it's time for a break, you run, because you, believe it or not, need a break just as bad as they do.
Right.
So if somebody tries to lasso you in, like they always do, and you never get away, you say, I want to talk to you, I promise I'll do it, but I gotta go to the bathroom. And maybe you really do, or I gotta have something to drink, because you need that time also.
One thing when we're talking about what Michelle is, one thing we want to encourage, like if any of you do a small group Bible study, I want you to factor in time for conversations during the class.
Yes.
Because we've been in, this class is small enough, I want to make sure you factor that in. Don't have so much presentation that you don't interact with your people. Large study, the larger you get, the small group, make sure you factor that in as a hunk of time.
Another thing that will take time in doing that is, let's say that you've got somebody in your room, and I know that Jess is going to be doing Christian wives, is that right? Christian wives?
Marriage and
that role and what that looks like. All of us have got something to say about that, really. And so sometimes, and I hope it never happens in this group or in your audiences, but it might, but there might be somebody in that room that knows more than you, or wants to share all the information that they know and take up your time. So if they start asking questions just to test you, or if they start offering stuff, what I've done before is, if she asks me a question about something, rather than trying to answer it, what do you guys think about that? You reflect, and that's what the next thing is. Reflect all those questions that might be coming because they know it all, or they're testing you to see what you're going to offer. I hope it doesn't ever happen in our setting. But you can't, you just better be prepared than not. Because nobody knows it all. Nobody does. And you want to hear what these people have to say, but like Jamel hadn't said hardly 2 words since we've been here. You haven't either. Rebecca hasn't either. You haven't either. And I'm sure you've got a lot to say. So what would you think about, a question or whatever, rather than just jumping up there and trying to answer it yourself. That includes everybody, and it builds in some of that time to engage them that you were talking about. The next one, we always want to be respectful. No sarcasm. And you might want to just pitch somebody's head off. We're human. And you might be thinking it. Watch your facial expressions. Oh my word, I'm so guilty. It's very hard for somebody, and I have had to pray about this a lot, no joke. If somebody come up to me and they want to tell me their whole life story, and I got 50,000 things to do, it's very hard for me to be still in the moment and not let my mind race, 20 miles down the road and truly be interested in what they're saying, because we're there, we're representing Christ, so we want to make sure that we're giving our heart to them as much as possible. But watch your facial expressions if you're like me, because it's hard for me. I have to pray about that really hard. That's one of the reasons why I keep bouncing that idea, I don't know if I can do that or not. trying to sit there and listen to people, I know my face might show I'm not interested. And I really would be, but my brain's somewhere else. Just be respectful, try to avoid sarcasm, try to cut that off at the chase if anybody else, in the audience starts feeling that way. Arrogance, criticism, we're representing somebody that deserves our best, and that's things shouldn't show up anywhere at all. This, any questions or any more comments about managing the audience before we move on? Hopefully that won't be a big issue, but. All right, so this last one, this is where I pitched some ideas off the list and gave me all your good stuff. And so this is just a list of presentation best practices. It's there. Know your content. I think that's without saying. I think you guys have tried to help with that as much as possible. Don't be afraid to use your notes, but don't read them. Best time for me to catch up is like if you guys are talking about something, somebody's elaborating on the thought that I had, I kind of glance down and see what my next thing is. So it's cheating without reading. And that one was a good one from Lisa. So try not to read them. You can use them, but try not to read them. If you're using a PowerPoint, less is more. I didn't know how long we were going to be in here, so I think you've got 13 slides, but 3 of them are note pages. So 10 pages, I don't know, Beverly. I know that you're going to be talking about some of that stuff next week, but as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to read from the slide, you don't want to push to it too much. I've always been taught that I'm standing on the wrong side of the room. You want to stand on the left side and point with your left hand if you're going to be looking at it. Whatever's most comfortable with you. If you want to stand on this side and point, if you're going to be over there, just kind of glancing back at it. I sometimes am more comfortable over here, but I don't know if it's a hard and fast rule that you got to stand on one side or the other. It's just.
Without, at the end, if we just have a few minutes, Michelle and I can give them some food for thought
Yeah.
as we move to that.
As we wind down?
Yeah.
Sure. Don't read from the screen. I try really hard not to read from the screen. But you can get somebody else to read from the screen that, again, is engaging without you actually doing it yourself. I don't think we'll ever have a problem with believing in what we're presenting. I think if anything, it's going to be a problem that we do believe wholeheartedly in what we're saying, and it may take over time and that kind of thing, but I think we'll be good with that one. Be your real self. People can see when you're genuine or not, and they'll have a tendency to really engage and listen to what you've got to say and believe in what you've got to say. If you're genuine, if you come across as being fake, they can see it. They can see it just as quick as you can point it out, they can see it. Just like you can see it in other people without being judged, but you can tell when somebody's trying to come across as being fake. You just can. And so try to cut that off at the door. Make sure that you're genuine as much as possible. Use humor. We talked about that already a little bit. If you can throw in a funny somewhere along the line, it's always good. It helps to break the ice. Make your message, and I think this is a good one, make your message as concise as possible. I'm pretty guilty of this one. Using a lot of words, it's not really necessary. Just because you know a lot of words you can say doesn't mean that it's enhancing your messaging more. I've heard somebody get up many times and try to say the same thing 5 different ways, and you get it the first time. You don't need to just keep on and on and on. Just say it and be done with it. But cut out some of that wordiness, and I'm guilty of that. I know I am. Maintain eye contact as much as possible with people. I think that helps to keep engaged. Pause to gather your thoughts. If those filler words are an opportunity for you, and they are for a lot of people, filler words. Try to just pause.
Everybody's looking at Jessica.
That's what it was though, and I realized that after I watched it, I was just trying to fill the space, because what it was I was doing a live Facebook video, and I got on and nobody was there. So there was, you could see at the top of the screen how many people are watching you, and nobody was watching, so I was waiting for someone to get on there. I didn't want to end it without having someone to interact with, and nobody ever got on. I guess it was just the wrong time of day.
You made the comment too that you didn't feel as comfortable with what you were, you weren't super confident, and that makes a huge difference if you're not confident.
It does. It does, because you're trying to fill it in.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're not prepared. really. Because if you know what you're gonna say and you've studied it, it seems like, who was it that said it just flows? Is it you? Michelle, it just flows out, it just comes.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is to try to be relaxed. You know, if you're not relaxed, you're gonna be nervous and your voice is gonna shatter and it's gonna just go quiver and it's gonna be very obvious. But again, hopefully, you know, breathing deep, it's huge. Just breathing deep before you go. Prayer always works in situations like that. People will see your passion. When you're passionate about it, you'll shine. It'll just shine through. And that's the most important thing you really make sure you get across. So, any questions or thoughts about these? You can just kind of maybe put those somewhere or hold on to them for another time.
I think being nervous is a good thing.
It is a
And
good
I've
thing.
had to learn it, and I think being nervous is a reflection that it doesn't rely all on you, especially in this realm of things. God's given you the opportunity to speak, and the nerves are a reminder that it is all about Him, and it's not about us, and that we have to fully rely on Him every time I speak. I always pray the same thing, Lord, just use me, push me out of the way, let the Spirit speak through me. Because I think I'm nervous every single time I'm nervous and sick to my stomach. But it's the reminder that it's not about me, it's about Him. And so I think nervousness is good. And I don't know who said it, but I saw it one time as a speaker, and she said that the hardest moments are the ones right before she walks on stage, because it's just her and God, and that's it. And it's the truth, because it's just you and the Lord at that point, and you answer for every word you say. And so it's humbling to be nervous, and it's that reminder of where we have to turn it over to God every time and say, this is for you, this is not for me.
And after the fact, I have actually gone back into that supply closet of the shop door. Thank you, Lord, thank you, Lord, thank you. I couldn't have done it if you hadn't been there. I knew you were there, thank you. And you just give Him praise, because you knew what just happened was the result of Him, not you. So you're spot on, exactly right. All right, wrapping up. So the summary, if I can get somebody on this side of the table, can y'all read some of those summary of what we just went through?
I got you. You have a list of presentation fundamentals that with practice will help build confidence. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Engaging the audience by getting to know them will help break down barriers and ensure your message is heard the way you planned. Knowing tips for managing the audience is always beneficial, and sharing experiences and best practices will build relationships and trust with your team.
So I would encourage you that as you go out and you give those presentations, maybe you can find time to come back in your next meeting or your next trip or whatever and share what happened, and share, you know, if you had any disruptions or if you had any praises, share with each other what those things look like. You know, then it helps to build you and it helps to build others too.
I just needed this lesson 20 years ago.
One last thought. When we talk about practice and the next 15 minutes or the presentations of the next time that you guys get together to do, be honest with your feedback. Whenever I was when I worked, you know, if I got we always were required to send out surveys. I don't care if it was the division managers, if it was department leaders, if it was just to our regular training class. We always had to send out surveys, because they would come back in and that would help build our yearly development plan. I mean, and what we needed to improve on, and whether we got a good
Merit increase.
yes, merit increase or not. And a lot of times if I got great job 100, great job 100, you know, okay, so I tried, but how did I grow from that? What specifically, you said I did good, what specifically did I do good at? And so when you're giving each other feedback, what did I do good at? What can I improve on? If you don't have those growth opportunities in action, can't improve an action that you don't know what it is.
Right.
So give action items that they can actually work on and improve on when you're doing that. That helps you and it helps you grow. That's the last thing. Yeah.
This is for you and Lisa. Whenever you're giving, do you write full sentence bullets, or do you have, when you have your notes, do you do bullets, or do you do a full sentence, or do you just do a word? Speak to how you, if you have a bullet with one word, how do you fill it in? How do you
Like my
remember?
note pages.
Right, or if you use sentences, how do you keep from reading? But you still get the rest of the material. Because I'm
You
trying
talk
to.
about like in your notes.
Right.
So mine look, I'm gonna use the word worse than that. 50 million different colors
Yeah,
and
different
writing
stuff
all
over
over
there.
there. That's just what works for me because, but see, I present the same stuff over and over. So it just helped, like I know what that big blob of words says as soon as I glance at it. So then it brings it back and I know, okay, that's what I need to say now. But to answer your question, I use both. Sometimes I do write a whole sentence because I need it until I, commit it to memory.
Like, with giving announcements in church, I'll just use that. I don't know how many's ever done it. Most people don't. Sometimes you want to engage with your people. You want to look at your audience because it's important, especially the women, because you want them to interact with you. And then I forget what I have on my paper.
Yeah.
And then I have to look down and I'm like, where am I at? Something you miss.
Yeah.
That is why, I don't know if Jessica, well, Jessica, you
I
must
just go
memorize
right there
yours.
and do it.
You memorize yours, though. You practice a lot with
Right.
memories. But
It's whatever works for you. If a word, just one word is gonna help to remind you of what other things you want to say might be. I got full sentences typed out. Those are all my notes for the previous page. And after the fact, I went back in and rewrote some stuff on the side that I didn't really want to say all that stuff. I wanted to say this stuff that would help me to remember all that other stuff. So it's really whatever works for you.
Like, we can see from the podium, we can see the screens ahead of us. So, like tomorrow, I'll say, good morning, ladies, I want to invite you to the Awaken Community Bible Study. And then I can see the date and the
so
time.
you look at the screen.
Childcare will be provided. And then my next bullet point is going to be invite. This is a community Bible study to invite, and it's kind of like I have the bullet words in my head. And then it's going to say, this is who I want you to invite. This is what we're going to be talking about. I've already told you, I don't want them to focus on where and what time and can I make it. I want to go ahead and get that out of the way and then tell them why I want to leave them with the hook of this is why I want you to be there. Or, oh yeah, my friend at work, because she said coworker can benefit from, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like I just put bullets in my head.
And I think too, Glenda, tell me, I might be wrong in saying this, but like, when you get up there, because I've never gotten up there, I've never had to, don't do it. Like, they're not gonna remember if you looked everybody in the eye. You have a point you need to get across, or a announcement that you need to make.
Yeah.
And that needs to be more of the focus. Like, I get that we need to engage everybody. I get that we need to have eye contact. But make sure that the focus isn't like scanning the room. That would be how I would be like.
Is normally
And also, you don't want to look at the back doors either. You don't want to look over their heads.
Right.
Because they'll those stacks off.
Right.
So if you know that Michelle sits over here, she's there, and I know that Lisa sits over here, she's there, kind of turn your head to the people that you know are in your corner.
That will smile at you.
Julie,
Smile at you. Everybody know those sections.
They don't smile at you. I know you do. You do. And I know she will and Julie will. But I think like everybody's different.